Virtual American Town Hall. I am your host, Mohammed Faheem. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, our co-host, Pastor Lawrence Blackfield Jr. would not be joining us. He is tied up, but we do have our other friends joining us tonight, and we welcome you also. Do chime in with our website, www.thevath.com, and join the conversation. This is your town hall. We want to make sure that your voice is heard. So, no political pundits, no paid programmers, nobody coming in with an agenda and talking points. We want to talk about what is in the best interest of the country. What can we, as citizens of this great country, bring to the table? What do we want our leaders to pay attention to? What is happening at the grassroots level? What are the concerns of people? And what solutions do you think can be brought to solve some of the urgent problems that are facing our country right now? So I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem, and joining me today would be John Runyon, John Petrick, and Ken DeLuck. Let me see if I can get everybody on board over here. Hey guys, welcome, and we are going to get started right away. And Pastor Blackfield Jr. is not going to be joining us tonight. He has some other obligations, but it's good to see John Petrick and John Runyon and Ken DeLuck and joining us. Thank you so much. John, you are muted, my friend. So if you can unmute and we can hear your baritone voice, that would be good.
Thank you.
Oh, there it goes. Look at that radio announcing voice right there, man. Okay. So
hello, can you go?
Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. Let's see if I can get Pete Tapaskar also is joining us, if I can get him queued up. And there's Pete. His son, Goro, today, trying to see if his dad can be joining with us. But folks, we got a lot of things to discuss again, as usual. I mean, you know that the pot has been boiling quite a bit last week. We've had some very important issues that came up, and to a certain extent, some resolution also. And with that, let's see if John has anything on his mind today. And I mean, I see John and John, so I'll say JP for John Petrick, and John Runyon is going to be JR today. So JP, let's start with you. What have you been doing along, apart from spending time with your grandchildren?
Well, besides babysitting and outside spreading mulch all day today, which was invigorating. I'll feel it tonight. It's occurred to me in the last week or two, especially, that with all the issues that are going on in this country and all the priorities that seem to be cropping up, whether it's gun control or justice or climate or whatever, there's a tendency in our culture to focus on treating symptoms rather than the root causes. Sort of like a doctor, will detect that you have cholesterol problems from your blood test. So he'll prescribe a pill for you. And often you won't hear anything about working on your diet, your exercise, the way, your lifestyle, which is more the root of why I have high blood pressure or why I have cholesterol. And I do think that that politicians often tend, and our leaders tend, to throw money and laws at the symptoms rather than looking at sometimes the social and mental services or underlying causes that may be contributing to the problems. It's easier to solve it with money and laws and not necessarily the effort to look at the root causes. So that's my starting dialogue today.
Well, I'm so glad you brought it up, John. So important to treat the causes And with that, let us segue into the George Floyd decision that came down. One step forward, hopefully for justice, but again, going back to the root causes of what creates a Chauvin, how do we handle it?
Yeah.
JR, any thoughts and suggestions on that, sir, as a former policeman and a practicing attorney?
You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. That situation was horrible from the start. I mean, there's no reason that you lay a man on his stomach and then put your knee on his back and on his neck and don't listen to what he is saying when he comes to the point where he's saying, I can't breathe. Every police officer knows about position asphyxia. And the first thing you want to do is you want to get the person off their stomach and get them into a sitting position, even if they're handcuffed. Now, you know, it's just a real shame that this went on. I don't understand it. I do not condone it. I think the officer was wrong, and the real sad part is not so much that he was convicted on all the charges, but the comments that were made by our public figures afterward and during the deliberations and during the trial. And I mean, you know, Congresswoman Waters.
Yes, Maxine Waters, yep.
Yeah, she's out there saying we're not leaving until he's found guilty and so on and so forth. And even the judge acknowledged to the defense attorneys that they very well may have
mistrial
an arguable case for appealing and winning the appeal and setting the case back down for another trial because of the situation. Twice they asked for a dismissal of the case. Twice they were denied by the judge. The second time, though, the judge made the acknowledgement that this may very well give you an appealable matter for the appellate court to deal with her comments, which are poisoning everything. And you know, JP, I have to agree with you. You know, let's take another pill because now we have this symptom. The problem is the symptom that popped up is because we took the other pill for the other thing that we had that may have been a symptom for something before that.
Yeah.
And the real sad part of it is even our politicians, they think that they can get in and they can make these kind of comments and it doesn't have any impact on the public, which I absolutely disagree. You know, we've already seen the evidence of the discussions that occurred about the so-called fire and brimstone speech by President Trump and what led to the debacle there. But you have politicians that say, well, that's just not enough. Well, how much do you want? The man was convicted on all charges. He was convicted on all charges. 45 years is a potential for him to spend in jail for basically, so that's just a life sentence right there. The problem is that there's two different types of sentencing. There is concurrent sentencing and there is consecutive sentencing. Concurrent sentencing means that all the sentences run together. So he can run all three of his prison times on all three different charges simultaneously. And one by one, they'll all fall off until the only one that's left is the one that it was the longest. And then he may be released at 85%? I don't know. The other type is consecutive. He runs the 45 years, then he has to do the 27 years, then he has to do the 20 years, one after another. So you do the math real fast, and all of a sudden he's at 80-something, 90-something years, and it's a life sentence that way as well. Is it appropriate? I'm not the one to say. That's going to be the judge's job, because he's the one that's been monitoring and listening to this whole case from start to finish.
John, you bring up some very interesting points over here, especially with regard to, the politicians always trying to play to the gallery and their base, coming in and making, stupid statements, for lack of a better words. I'm sorry, folks, but that's what it is. And, the whole thing could have been a jeopardy if there was a mistrial was declared. So that is one side of the issue. But coming back to the systemic change that we need to be looking at to make sure that the root cause is addressed, not just the symptoms. Any suggestions, any ideas, Ken?
Well, I think in today's environment with cameras on the police officers and, iPhones and everything else, it's an issue that's probably been around for a very long time, but now it's in front of everyone's face. And I think, especially now that they're talking about, maybe eliminating qualified immunity and some other issues going on, that we may see a sea change here in how a lot of these things are viewed, and even the attitude of the officers involved. They're going to think twice before they make a rash decision to say, hey, is this in my best interest to do this? So knock on wood, I'm hoping that we're going to a better place right now.
Look at this.
I don't mean to, and I apologize, Mohammed, for
No, go ahead, please.
But the thing, can you bring up a really good statement by maybe the officers are going to think twice? Well, if you take a look around, and I'll be honest with you, my office looks out onto a very busy street by where I live, and it is a 6-lane highway, and about now the drag races will start, and they will go on all night. And the officers who would normally be out here with their radar units and running, they're not out here with their radar units and running them very much. And the thing is that the officers, I feel, is that, one, why should we be out there doing something if we're not going to get any kind of support, one, from the public, and two, from our department? Yeah, do we need to have some reforms? Yeah, I agree. Do we need to try and find the officers, like the officer that was just convicted, and weed him out of the system? Boy, that's going to be tougher to do until that officer does something and brings the attention to the forefront of him and whatever happened. But the real reality is that we've got officers that don't feel that they're going to be protected one way or the other. And Ken, you just made a very prophetic statement, because the actual reality is the officers, one, do not want to come out and do aggressive police work. Number two, they don't feel that they're being protected as well. And number three,
hey John, let me just say, don't take me the wrong way.
Hold on, let me finish, Ken.
Okay.
And three, and I think this is most important, is I think that we're going to see a reduction of excellent candidates that would be excellent officers, because they're not going to apply. So and I think Ken, that's you really made a statement, and I know what it's like not to have the public behind me.
And John, just let me clarify that. In fact, I'm glad you said that, because earlier today, I was thinking to myself, you know, back in the day, would I want to be a police officer? And there was a time where I thought, yeah, that might be a good thing to do, public servant and whatnot. And given the situation right now, especially.
And there he goes. Come on, Ken. We're cheering
on,
for
Ken,
you.
wake up.
To be,
Come on.
you know, out
Wake
there.
up, Ken. Repeat what you just said, Ken, because we lost you.
I, I give
Okay.
up some time. I said, no, I feel exactly what you're saying. And earlier, I thought myself when I was younger, okay, I was considering taking up that profession. And I was wondering to myself today, would I want to do that because they're under so much pressure because you want to make a difference, you want to do the right thing, but then you're under so much scrutiny. How is that even possible? Is it worth it? You know, I mean, it's a really hard profession to be in right now. Okay. So I'm not at all disparaging police officers.
Oh, I
I'm
know you're not. I know
I'm
you're
not coming from that point at all.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I'm just saying that there are where a lot of, maybe not the majority, maybe it's a small minority of people who are out on the street where before they thought, you know, they have no consequences. Well, maybe it's just that half a second that makes a difference between shooting a 13-year-old as opposed to finding another way of, you know, resolving the situation. And again, I don't know. I'm not a cop, but I understand where they're coming from. I have family members who are cops, and I understand it.
You know, the one thing is that, and you make that statement, Ken, you know, shooting a 13-year-old. Horrible. It is horrible. It is horrible.
Oh, by the way, I'm not saying about this 13-year-old because he had a gun in his hand. I totally understand that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
you know,
I
but
totally get that, and that's, I'm not even calling that as a, I'm just giving it as an off example. Okay.
no, I know. And don't worry about it. I don't take it any other way. But what I'm saying is all of us are probably about in the same group age, except one gentleman here who's a lot younger than all of us. But we won't
Pete?
mention any names there, Joseph. But we all had the same requirement. You had to be in front of the house or at home when the streetlights turned on. You had to be home when the streetlights turned on. Or you had to be in the front yard where your mom and dad could see you. What is a 13-year-old child doing out at that late hour with another kid? Never mind the gun. Where's his parents? And this just goes back to JP's comment, the systemic situation. How do we treat that? We got family that are trying to just provide enough by working 2 jobs, and they can't monitor their children all the time. And it, you know, all of this spins around with what JP was saying. Ken, it spins around with what you were saying. And yeah, how do we deal with all of these issues that we're dealing with right here in this town hall meeting? How do we deal with all of this? I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it really does take a village to raise a child. And that means everybody has got to be involved. Everybody.
John, you brought up the third layer of this onion now. When we start peeling it back, yeah, the family, very important. But then you go back in and you bring in our social service agencies, which are bearing down so heavily on if a parent disciplines their child, you know, DCS or whatever comes into play and says, hey, you know, you can't do that. I mean, you know, you can't discipline your child. It is inhuman. It is child cruelty. So again, I think the political angle comes into play over here also. I mean, these agencies, are they doing the job that they were first commissioned to do, or are they overstepping their bonds over here? Okay.
Well, I got to tell you, Mohammed, and I'll be real frank. I believe I believe that they're overstepping their boundaries a lot. Yeah, Department of Children and Family Service has just a thankless job. You know, they're out there trying to figure out what the story is with people that aren't going to tell them the truth, and they're going to have to figure it out. But I've been involved in a couple different cases with DCFS involved, and believe me, they are a mess. They are truly a mess. And I've got one case that I'm fighting right now. So, but yeah, are they doing their job? I don't think that they have the ability to do their job. And at one time, way back when, the head of DCFS, Mr. Murphy, he was very adamant that DCFS should be broken up into two separate departments. One, to take care of the children. Two, to have some kind of law authority to immediately bring parents into custody for violations of the law. But that's never happened. But I would love to say that all of our programs are working. The problem is that they're all overwhelmed, and that's me speaking from experience. That's you know, that's
John,
not the station's opinion. That's just me.
Yeah, I think it goes back, further to the school system. Like, for example, when I was going to school, I went to a Catholic school, okay, All Saints High School. And all the children who were Catholics, they had to go to church and mass and all of that. And we who were non-Catholics, the Hindus and the Muslims and the other Christian denominations, we had to sit through a 1-hour class that was called as moral science. And the moral science component of it was mostly stories from the Bible, okay, which had a point to make as to how do you respect your teachers, how do you respect your parents, how do you respect your elders, how do you respect the people around you, your neighbors. That was drilled into us as children. I wonder if that is happening now. Joseph Alfaro, sir, what are your comments on this?
As far as, I mean, it is a tragic situation. It's tough. It's tough on both sides. How do you have control, but how do you give people their own control? And I think the tough part is that we live in such a big nation, and the world is getting smaller. Government's evolved to such a point where it has so much control that it has to be so careful how it uses and wages its resources, its powers. A lot of corruption. Not even corruption. I mean, it's its own animal. It's tough, and with that, I mean, the media plays such a big role. The media really sways and pushes the people to ends with that, pushes its own reform. And then you have companies getting involved that, pay the media, and it's so big and so over our heads. It's really hard to distinguish what's right and wrong, how to go, how to even begin to approach. It's a tough situation to really address as an individual, because it is a situation that's bigger than any one of us.
Okay, at least, the realization that there is a problem is step one towards, looking for a solution. And Gaurav, what do you think, man? As a young man, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on this about Fahimi, if you can hear me, I think it's something. I
We can
agree
hear
with
you very well.
Yeah, well, what Joseph was saying is totally completely correct. Like he said, the world is getting smaller, population is increasing, and society is changing. And I'm saying that I guess more people nowadays have been influenced by the media than their parents, because media tells you how to dress, how to think, how to talk, and they pretty much control what you see and when you see. So I'm saying we have a system right now that is totally broken and totally messed up, and we don't know what to do with this. So there's a lot of the situation is between political and economic situations. So I'm saying it is mostly things are more difficult now than it was. And in some ways, I figure like technology has helped some people in some aspect. In some way, it hasn't. So there's so much like misinformation out there,
So
and
Goro, as a
but yeah,
young man growing up now, I mean, we have, you know, John and Ken and John Patrick and I, we have mostly lived our life. Okay.
right.
You guys are going to be the future of the country. What would you like to see as step one?
My first step would be that everybody like should be healthy. They should be happy. Everybody should be given the opportunity that they deserve to live up to their God-given potential. And I think everybody, I think some of the problems that are happening right now, I think it should be solved from. It has to do with a lot to do with education, family value, and mindset, and the values that's been taught at home. And maybe if we have all these things like the good old-fashioned American values and American way of raising kids and children, we wouldn't be having so many of these problems out there. Everybody
Okay,
has to
Ken,
do.
you wanted to make a point, so you raised your hand.
Yeah, Joe brought up something about corporations and um, it's not Pete, but his son brought up something about, what can you do? And with what's been happening lately, there may be an actual solution here. And maybe with the people who are on this panel, if they know how to do the research to find this out, this may be one possible idea. In Georgia, for example, okay? And I'm sure that everybody's very well aware of the restrictive voting laws that the Georgia legislature has been trying to put into play. And we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. So Coca-Cola, American Airlines, a number of other companies have been saying to these legislatures, hey, we don't like what you're doing there. Well, that's great. It's nice that the corporate people are stepping up and making those points. But let me give you some statistics. Over $50 million in Georgia and over $35 million in trade organizations, that's $85 million total, has been backing these Republican or legislatures, I'm not even say Republican or Democrat, but the legislatures in Georgia that were voting to do the voter restriction policies that they were going for. If by chance you know exactly who these individual corporations are that are doing that, and you say, okay, if you are not going to immediately not just denounce funding these people who are trying to restrict our voting rights, but if you can actually say, we're going to pull all of our funding from you, and you don't do that, and we know who you are, then initiate that boycott, okay? You hit their bottom line, they say, okay, we're not going to fund anybody who's against voting rights or whatever. Then all of a sudden things can start changing, and like all these problems that we're having here, if you get people in there that are concerned about what the actual people think, and it doesn't just have to be voting rights, it could be whatever the situation is. Now you're like providing a, an impetus to actually make change happen because money speaks.
You know, the My Pillow guy, when he was
Yeah.
standing up
Yeah.
for, our dearly departed president. And when I say dearly departed, I mean departed to Mar-a-Lago, man. So don't get me wrong, okay? Okay. But he lost business by the millions of dollars. A lot of the major retailers sold his product, and man, he got a big burn on his backside. Let me put it this way. So yeah, you may be on to something over here, Ken. If the corporations who are, for lack of a better word, lobbying for their own interests and supporting these politicians who make the policy that is being implemented by everyone from the governors on down to the different organizations like DCFS that John was referring to. So if the rot is starting at the top, okay, and they feel the burn, maybe, and it's not going to be an overnight thing. I'm saying maybe things might look different down the road, to when Gaurav has his children and his grandchildren, they live in a better America than we do.
Yeah.
I think the corporations that stood up and made the statements that they did in Georgia ought to be applauded, and I say that quite wholeheartedly. And the reason I say that is, and I've said this before, voting is not just a fundamental right guaranteed by our Constitution. It has to be a human right, guaranteed just because we are human, and we have a right to express our opinion and right to vote for the person that we feel is going to do the very best job for us. And by Georgia enacting these laws that create roadblocks for people to step up to the polling place and vote is so very problematic for me that I don't understand what they're thinking. I mean, would it be great if we had an identification for the voters? Okay, you gotta have a state ID. There you are. There's your state ID. You may not have a driver's license. You can always get a state ID. There it is. Here's my state ID. I'd like to vote now. Please do. Here's my ticket. I have a driver's license, but that's being posted as bond. Here's my ticket. Okay, great. Go vote now. These ideas where we're going to stymie people from voting, I feel is just repugnant. I really do. And I applaud.
Yeah, and John, I mean, what's amazing in the 2020 election, there were 347,000 votes that were challenged before the election even occurred.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's ridiculous. How can you challenge a vote that hasn't even happened yet? Okay.
Those are all the mail-ins. Those are all the mail-ins.
And it was like, the court said, no, you can't do that. But all these new regulations that they brought into place, I mean, they're saying that, okay, if, we have to have a partisan, someone filming the counting process. And if it doesn't work, those people can now be arrested. It's a felony. Well, maybe they should do it in every district in Georgia and, turnabout's fair play. Maybe have, the Democratic people go in the Republican districts and do the same thing and see how that works. I don't know. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like, why is voter suppression the main key thing for these elections going forward? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's them being afraid because their policies have really not worked out. And, I want to segue a little bit into the immigration debate on this now. And, it is, I think last week, President Biden came up and said that we are no longer going to use the word illegal alien, for example. So, rational immigration reform is sorely needed. We have had 4 years of calling immigrants as murderers, rapists, and all sorts of things. So we need to elevate this debate on immigration and take a hard look at what immigrants have done for our country and not fear immigration, but welcome it, within the law. There are some places where we can all agree, like DACA and work visas, but we also need to reform the system, especially border enforcement, where it can be more secure, but also more compassionate. So I think—
Yeah, and this is not even a partisan issue. George W. Bush,
Yep.
he just came out with a book about people and immigrants, that he's promoting right now. And he's for immigration reform.
Yeah, the book of paintings that he has.
Yeah. So this isn't a partisan thing. It just makes sense.
And once we get that point across, maybe the Republicans, I won't even call them Republicans, man, and these are all the diehard My Pillow Trump supporter kind of guys. mostly they are creating these issues because they have seen that their version is not being accepted by the American people at large. So
Mhm.
how do you shrink that? And that's where all these border separation laws are coming into place. For
The sad fact right now with our borders is, and I've said this again, or I'm going to say it again, and I've said that I know several times. I don't think our legislature really wants to have secure borders. Think about it. If we really wanted to have secure borders, we could certainly secure our borders without a problem. Part and parcel of the National Guard's duties is going to be to protect our borders. We're going to build the wall. We're going to put up concertina wire. We're going to do whatever is necessary. We're going to have machine gun posts, whatever it takes to secure our borders. Well, I have not heard any kind of rhetoric like that other than President Trump, we're going to build a wall. Okay, well, that's great. We're going to build a wall. So we're going to just dig a tunnel underneath the wall and we're going to come in anyway.
Or the ladder.
Or just build a higher ladder. Yeah,
That
whichever.
sentiment is so black and white, though. I mean, it's
Well,
such a
yeah,
such a
and
black and
I
white
would say,
sentiment.
yeah,
Because there's so
John,
much-
Joe
people have so
wants to
much-
make a comment here. Go ahead, Joe.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, there's so many people that work. They live on one side and they go to work on the other side, and they commute back and forth. Well, there's a lot of trade. There's a lot of trade that goes back and forth. I mean, they have trains that go in and out, trading, imports, exports. There's just so much that goes in and out, and a lot of people take advantage of these situations. I mean, the illegal immigration, or the illegal crossing the border, I should say, that just doesn't happen anymore. Over the years, security is ramped up. People that did it 20 years ago, there's no way that they can illegally cross on their own, at least.
Yeah.
Nowadays you have to hire, cartel or what are they called? Coyotes,
Yeah.
to cross the border.
Hey, Joe, I just
George,
want to bring one point. This is like really important. This is like really close to my heart.
Sure.
I have a relative who had a landscaping company, 45 employees, and every one of them showed a green card. So if they were illegal or not, legally, we didn't know about that or whatever. But if the ones who were not illegal or were not legal, okay, showed that, they're paying Social Security every paycheck into the system. And that amount of money for all those illegal aliens, as they say, that are in the country doing that, it comes to about $1.7 trillion into the US economy that they can never claim on because they don't have a legitimate Social Security number, okay? So, it's like, we have to pay because of all these illegal aliens. No, you don't. They're actually giving us way more benefit than we'll ever get out of it because they cannot claim as US citizens what that's all about. And most people don't even have a clue that that's the real world out there.
They can, but here comes the human rights part of me out there. Okay. These people, for the most part, are being exploited. Okay. They don't have any rights. They live in the shadows. And, just because they are contributing to our economy, is it morally just?
Sometimes you may be right, but to be honest with you, with the people that I'm talking about, they made twice the minimum wage of anybody else in our local economy. So that wasn't the issue for them at all. They were hardworking people. They did their job well. They never caused a problem, and they were great at what they did. Okay. So,
but they are not
sometimes
being,
people take advantage of people. I get that.
No. I'm not talking of them being exploited by the employers at this point. I'm talking of, them living in the shadows, not having any rights, not getting any, any schooling and medical care and all of that, always living in fear you know, that is not my America, man. I mean, I would rather welcome them on work visas. Come on in, do your job, get paid, get
Sure,
compensated properly,
makes
and go
sense.
back.
Absolutely.
America is a huge magnet for people who think that everything here is, paved with gold. Every street is paved with gold, right? That is why people
Yeah.
want to come over here. I can give you a perfect example. The border between India and Pakistan, okay? There's not that much patrolling going on, but people don't like to cross over from one country into the other country because there's no incentive for them to cross over to the border, right? There's some smuggling going on, drugs and all that kind of stuff that goes out, But here we have this huge image out there that you cross over the border, you start making good money, then you can take care of your family and friends back home also. Uh, so yeah, there's that aspect that we have to look at. Okay. And Joe, please, you're giving me a neck ache, man, by doing your stretches. Okay.
Hey, John, JP, you say
Yeah.
you wanted a question? What did you have to
Well,
say?
with the immigration thing, the need seems to be a balance between reasonable regulations and controls, but also the humane responsibilities when a child shows up without parents at your border, or when people
Right.
cram into a boat and try to get to your country. What is a humane response, and what is reasonable regulations and controls? And we haven't really, we wrestle with that a lot.
Yeah, John, you bring up a good point, man. I mean, if a child shows up at the border without parents, whose
Which is that.
responsibility is it? Whose
Yeah,
responsibility is it? Why
right.
why are we supposed to be the morally superior people and accept that child and take care of that child? What about the child's parents? I mean, where is their moral responsibility in this?
Yeah, they want their child to have freedom that they don't have, or to have safety that they don't feel they have, perhaps. And they're willing to abandon that child to give that child a life, hopefully, rather than dying in the desert and being a burden to the United States press and government.
John, that's a great point. And like, how bad could those conditions be that someone would be willing to give up their children to
Yeah,
put them
I
over
think
there? Yeah, I
I
mean,
think they're
that's a huge
terrible.
thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
it's a sticky, tough problem.
It
Yeah,
is a tough nut to crack, folks. And again, there are so many issues that we are looking at. As a town hall, again, my whole idea is let us identify issues and see what can be done to chip away at it. And John, I do owe you that letter to the legislators that I have to pen, but I have been so swamped with trying to get a few things under control. By the way, I did launch my platform and my attempt to go for Congress.
good,
Mohammed,
Hey!
what
good.
have you like put forward now as your platform? Is there some key issues you want to address?
Well, if you go to the website, you will see we have got a wonderful website that we launched. And the formal launch of the campaign would be in about, I would say, 15, 20 days. We'll go all out to launch it. But, again, my first thing that I really, really am concerned about is the job creation and the job situation, skill development post-pandemic. Yeah, but the four most important words in English in my lexicon are very simple. This too shall pass. These are the four words. Everything is going to change. Everything is going to pass. We're going to come back to normal. That might be a new normal. But once that new normal hits, how do we get people back into productive employment? How do we bring in employers some value for what they can bring to the system? That is number one. That is number one in my book. Obviously, we have got other issues that we speak about over here, including the environment and climate control and climate change and all that is happening. Police and law enforcement reform that we constantly talk about, medical issues that need to be addressed. I was really struck by a video that I saw this morning about a person who was $23,000 medical debt. The guy was like drowning in medical debt. One of the congressional candidates in Virginia came forward and put in like $55 towards his medical debt. This guy had gone on that candidate's website, and he had said, "I'm never going to vote for you. I don't like you. I don't know who you are," all kinds of things. And the candidate searched him out, contributed $55, and asked all his followers to contribute. And by the end of the day, next day, $26,000 were collected in that GoFundMe for that candidate. I mean, for that person. So yeah, medical reform is going to be essential. Education reform is going to be very essential for us. Diversity, immigration, again, important things.
Education, yeah.
Yeah.
I think employment and education really do address the root causes of a lot of our ills.
Yeah. I mean, if we've got everybody working, or as many people as we can possibly get working, either through retraining or through businesses that are opening back up again and rehiring the employees they lost, or new people because they've lost the employees and the employees have moved on. I think that's certainly a huge aspect. I've always believed that education is the silver bullet. There is no doubt in my mind, and you'll never sway me, otherwise, that education will, be a benefit to everybody. I mean, you look at this panel today, and I am pretty confident that all of us are well educated, and we thank our parents for that. I certainly thank my mom, because she used to sit me at the dining room table making me do my multiplication tables every night. You got to be able to know your up to your 12s. But we need the education. And yeah, I agree, John. Absolutely.
One of the important things that I got involved in was the reshoring initiative that I launched with Harry Moser and Ryan Haas almost 2010 now. It's been a while. And when we talk reshoring, we were talking about bringing back American manufacturing jobs by training employers about employing, about the cost of offshoring production. So we went around talking to employers, and they said, we would love to bring back, our manufacturing from overseas, but we don't have any trained employees anymore. When the economy crashed, a lot of the people that were working in manufacturing, they went out of manufacturing into other jobs, healthcare, and you name it, okay? So the employers are asking us, I would love to bring back jobs, but I don't have my workforce over here. And more importantly, I don't have people sitting on the bench, young people coming into manufacturing. So that's where the second leg of the table came into my mind, and we came up, with the Manufacturing Careers Internship Program, which initially was developed by Rand Haas in Lake County as a different program. But we brought the program in. We started bringing in young people into, manufacturing careers as interns. But the important thing that John brought up, economy comes back, we don't have people trained for those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? Now, the workforce training system, the grant funded trainings that I was part of, I'm so sorry, that whole program is so badly mismanaged. It'll blow your mind when I show you, stats and numbers on how badly our tax dollars are being wasted in that program. So maybe, there is an opportunity there. But coming back to, again, young people coming into manufacturing, we started talking with our school systems. Rand and I would go and visit with different schools and say, hey, do you have a a shop anymore, shop class. I would say a good 75-80% of schools did not have a shop class anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
All the counselors in those schools were focused on getting kids into a 4-year college. That's what they were being evaluated on.
How many classes even have social studies anymore? I mean, really? You
4-year
know?
college. And, halfway through that 4-year college, the kid drops out and he is back on, flipping burgers. The schools don't care. And the counselors don't care at that point. So education reform is going to be so essential. And most of the stuff that we teach in our colleges is useless, it's useless crap. I'm sorry to use that word.
True.
But hey, focus on what is needed by tomorrow's industries, tomorrow's economy. Train people for that. Oh, we need a well-rounded person, well-rounded education. No, no, no. If I'm going to be an engineer, I don't need to read Shakespeare. I'm sorry, okay? I can do that in my time. But don't make it mandatory for me to take those classes in order to graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. That is the reform that I want to see in the education system. And it is so bloated. The cost of education is going through the roof. Kids are coming out of a 4-year college with $100,000 plus student debt on them.
Yeah.
No way of paying back. No way
And
of paying
especially
back.
now with like technology going where it is, it's so much more highly specialized. Like you said, Shakespeare's great, but that's not going to pay the bills. We need a new mindset going
It's
forward.
absurd.
Yeah, go ahead, Gaurav.
That's absurd what you were saying, saying Fahimi. They should actually teach the subjects in the 4-year school that's gonna prepare you for today's economy, not what happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, because higher education is all run by bureaucracy and bureaucrats, and they're only teaching you stuff that's pretty much outdated, has nothing to do with the curriculum, has nothing to do, it's not going to give you bread and butter or give you money or a great job. They're only teaching subjects. Sometimes some of these colleges, universities, they're only preparing you for academics, but not for the real world. That's why there's so much issues, and like you said, people when they graduate 4-year college, they end up with so much debt and they drown in like social studies or human psychology or paleontology. I don't know if there's enough jobs in that market or that pays well in today's market that you're majoring in all dumb subjects and then they end up with a huge, like fine arts, like you said, somebody who does mechanical engineering. What's the point making them all rounder, make them more social studies, space, Shakespeare, human science? Like Ken was saying, Shakespeare is good, but in the end, it doesn't give you bread and butter to survive in the real world. That's what how the system, and of course that the education system is totally messed up in America today. I don't know what world they're living in today. They should be.
Well, let me give you guys a real life example from my
Wait,
side. Okay?
Mohammed, let me interrupt
ahead,
just for a second.
1 second, Ken.
Even the bigger issue right now, with what he was just saying, is that unlike every other thing that you do, if you like go in business and you fail, you have the option of claiming bankruptcy. Okay, so like you wanted to do something, it didn't work out, you can get the free pass and start your life over. The one thing you cannot claim on bankruptcy right now is student debt. So like what he's saying, you're learning all this stuff and you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for that education. And if it doesn't work out to where it makes you that bread and butter, as he's saying, well, you're done, because you cannot get over that because they don't allow you to even get past that point. So it's from a legislative point of view, student debt should absolutely be considered to be in the bankruptcy code going forward. But go ahead.
Well, no. One thing which I wanted to bring to your attention, guys, when I was working with Illinois WorkNet, obviously my focus was jobs and employment. And Argosy University, which is now out of business, and I guess for a very good reason, had a board of advisors, and I was invited to be on that board. So there would be a meeting like every quarter or so. And I attended one meeting where there was a new president that was introduced. And also they had a big smile on their face, and they said, we are going to be introducing 4 new master's level courses. And here is the curriculum as what we would be teaching. So one was in IT and, healthcare, all kinds of 4 different subjects. It's been a while now since I'm forgetting what the real subjects were. And human resources was one of them, obviously. So I look at the curriculum and I said, okay, I got a question. Who developed this curriculum? They said, well, we had subject matter experts, and I can see John Petrick smiling because he's been through the education system and he knows. We had subject matter experts that we hired. And I said, how long back was that? Oh, that was, 2 years back. So, and they did their research and their studies, and they came up and they gave us this curriculum. And we turned around and we submitted it to the State Board of Higher Education. And they went ahead and approved it real quick in 2 more years. So I'm like, okay, so from the time that you started to the time that the curriculum is now approved, and they wanted to raise, like, I remember $900,000 in order to hire the staff and the faculty and the support staff in order to launch those courses. So I said, okay, fine. Now, 4 years, and I look at the curriculum and I said, this is so outdated by today's standards as to what I am seeing in the market, because I was in constant touch with employers all the time. And I said, by the time somebody comes in and gets their master's and comes out with this degree, which is another 2 years, what you're teaching them is going to be so obsolete and irrelevant. I'm not going to sign off on these courses. And I walked out of that meeting. I said, I'm not going to approve this. But that was just me, one instance, one college. Okay, one college. Let's think about the education system at large. It is a diploma mill, basically, okay? And when you point it out to them, they get so mad at you. How dare you challenge our education system? Yeah, I dare to challenge it because I think your education system sucks. All of you guys who are sitting there with PhDs and an Ed.D., okay, I don't know why anyone would get a PhD in education. What are you doing? You never step out into the market. You don't know what is happening in the real world. You're reading books written by old academics, which are no longer relevant. What color is my parachute, for example, for job seekers? I don't give a damn what color my parachute is. I want to know whether it functions when I pull the ripcord. But that is my rant on it. John says he needs to leave, and we are coming to the end of the program. Anyhow, John,
Sorry.
thank you so much for joining us today.
I gotta run. I'll see you next week.
We will definitely see you next week. But John, before you go, you are my man in place now instead of Pastor Blackwell. Could you please lead us out with a prayer, and we'll end the subject tonight.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this lively discussion. And although we may not have all the answers, I think it's a good dialogue that you've inspired us to stay on the high side and to look for possibilities of looking at root causes, the cures to what ails our country. We thank you for the empowerment that you give us, and we ask your blessing on us this week ahead. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, folks. And folks, this has been the Virtual American Town Hall. I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem. I was joined today by Ken Duluck, John Petrick, John Runyon, Joseph Alfaro, and Gaurav Tapaskar. Thank you all very much for the lively discussion. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Good night.
Good night, all.
See ya. Peace out.
Take care.